You're watching KLTX, Channel 15, serving the city of Lufkin.
Today on Screen It or Stream It.
Guess what?
What is it this time?
If you say my superhero name, you will gain my power.
The ability to make bad puns and endless dad jokes?
Actually, I'm not so good at the puns. You know, I once told like 10 puns just to make someone laugh. Unfortunately, they were all terrible, so no pun intended. Shazam is rated PG-13 for intense sequences of action, language, and suggestive material.
It's the story of good versus evil, wrapped up as a superhero origin story.
The last of the 7 wizards is looking for someone to carry his power forward and be the champion that fights evil.
Not just any evil, specifically the 7 deadly sins.
The search continues for decades before the wizard chooses Billy Batson, a street-smart orphan with a propensity for getting in trouble.
Meanwhile, Dr. Thaddeus Savannah intentionally unleashes the personification of the 7 deadly sins to gain their power for his own goals.
However, once the champion is revealed in Billy Batson, Dr. Savannah realizes that he must stop him if he wants to protect his position and newfound power.
So, what did we think about this one?
Loved by critics and audiences alike, we think Shazam is a good movie. I had such a good time. Like, it knew exactly how serious to take itself and was just so much fun to watch because of that.
I thought Shaquille O'Neal was really good in this movie.
No. That's Kazam. Kazam with Shaq. This is Shazam.
I am Kazam.
Oh, man. All right, hold on. We gotta watch the other one now. No, I 100% agree with you. I felt like a little kid again. Like I felt like a little kid in the theater. There was something wholesome about it, something whimsical, something magical.
Strong family message?
And so, like, for me, really, the magic has pretty much gone out of movies. And it may be that CGI thing again. It may be whatever. But I remember just, watching movies as a kid and being mesmerized and just being sucked in. And it's really hard to do that now. And Shazam did that.
It's just that, one, like everyone you see, it does kind of raise the bar when you see the really good ones.
Yeah.
And most movies, just in general, not recent movies, just most movies in general aren't that great. They're okay. Or worse.
A lot of times we go to the movies, and pretty much every movie we walk out of, I kind of walk out with a sense of And the more I think about them, they tend to start to diverge. And the more I think about them, like, you know what, I really didn't like that part, I didn't like that part, or I really like this. And but I walked out of Shazam being like, you know what, I enjoyed it. I walked out and immediately was like, I like that. I don't think it's a great movie. Like, I don't think, it's the best movie ever, you got to go see it. But it's just really enjoyable. It's really fun. I did not feel preached to at all. I didn't feel there was no message I was supposed to be getting there. It was not a thought-provoking. I wasn't watching it going, oh, what is he doing? What is he supposed to figure out? I'm not looking for the sequel setup. I was just in the movie, in the moment, and enjoying it. And that's very rare nowadays, especially for a superhero movie, because that seems to be, we got to make it tie into the universe and we got to make it do, and it didn't do any of that.
And they have, well, again, with market saturation, there have been so many, especially origin stories, that it's hard to make one that stands out. But this one does, I think. It was fun. It's just fun.
Well, and maybe that's it too. It's different enough, like the feel is different enough that...
Well, it has an actual story to it. It's not just special effects the entire time. That's not the drawing point for the movie. You follow Billy along and him becoming a superhero and all of this, and him getting a family. Whereas, like the Avengers, I can't tell you anything that happens. That aliens come down and cartoons fight it. That's
Hawkeye
it.
has a good family.
And the second one, they give him some personality.
Well, one of the things that was great, and it just worked, and they used it perfectly, was Billy suddenly being endowed with all the powers of the wizard makes him a fish out of water. And they used that for the comedy just pretty much the rest of the movie. They were able to milk that for all it was worth, and it was great.
Well, again, this is an origin story, right?
Yeah.
And we're like, an origin story. But the origin is so much fun
Right.
that it's okay. Then it's
Exactly.
it's it's not, it doesn't feel like pasted on. We need to get this set up so we can go ahead and go do something else. The origin was the movie. That's what it was about. And then again, like you said, he becomes Shazam instantaneously, basically, and then he's just lost.
Yeah.
He can't go home because he looks completely different. He can't go anywhere because he looks completely different. He doesn't know what to do, and he's, he has nothing of his own because he's a young kid. And I loved the ensemble. Like,
Oh my gosh!
like all the other foster kids. Again, the
every
little girl
side-
was so cute.
Every side character in this movie was like a wonderful addition. Like they all had their own moment, and none of them felt like weird asides. Like sometimes it's like, oh, now we're gonna. No, they all added to the atmosphere of what was going on, and it was perfect. Like that's how you do side characters, people.
And I don't know how to say this without like contradicting my other feelings. Like, but it almost feels, and it's DC, I know, but it feels very Disney almost. Like the foster family is great. None of them are, oh well, Susie's really got a drug problem, or like it seems like everything now somebody's got to be twisted horribly in some way. Or, the foster parents show up and they're just this nice, loving couple that they were foster kids and they want to help foster kids.
What you mean.
And they don't, dad doesn't, they go to bed and dad has to beat mom or something, because that's every movie.
I mean, they hint at that as a joke early.
But they were just nice. And the foster kids, like, there was the big guy that was kind of quiet and shy, and there was a nerdy one that's playing video games. So they all were kind of a stereotype. But again, nothing was like, oh, he plays too many video games. It wasn't like, oh, he's doing crack on the side, or oh, he's, it's just, that was so nice and kind of refreshing and different.
And for a change, they were thankful for the position they've been put in with the foster parents.
One thing I was going to say about the kids is that you said, like, they're good kids, but I saw some pretty serious flaws with them, but it's things that kind of make sense in the context of the story. Lots of insecurity, lots of isolation, lots of overcompensation, things that are more, I guess, psychological problems that you would expect in that kind of background, and those are things that they're kind of coping with and dealing with and trying to overcome. But you're right that they're not evil.
But
kids.
none of those make them bad people.
They're not bad people.
Right, they weren't
have flaws.
They're damaged people.
Yeah, damaged people, but not bad people. And that's the way movies used to be when we were kids. Everybody was, think of the old westerns and John Wayne, and he was just upstanding and abided the law and did whatever. And again, they always had some kind of character quirk or something, but it never made him a bad guy. And then in like the 90s, we started getting like the anti-hero, and that was so popular because it was different and it was cool. And now everything has to be flawed, and it's bright, and it's colorful, and it's cheerful, and that is something DC has not done. And some of the characters, Shazam needs to be bright and cheerful, and like Spider-Man, like Marvel finally, I enjoy the Spider-Man now so much more because he is bright and he's cheerful and he's happy because that's who he is. And looking at you, Flash TV show. Now, and don't get me wrong, like I like dark and gritty, but there are characters that do dark and gritty well.
There's times and places for it.
Batman is dark and gritty character. You want to do dark and gritty Batman? Great. Superman is not a dark and gritty character. Don't make him dark and gritty.
Movie.
I know. Don't do
Constantine, dark and gritty.
Dark and gritty. I don't want a happy Constantine. That doesn't work. But I want a happy Shazam. I want a happy Superman. I want a happy Spider-Man.
Swamp Thing should be happy.
I was going to go for the Crow, but okay.
Alan Moore can never be happy.
Now, there were some things I didn't like. So, the magician was looking for a person pure of heart, a good person, essentially. And when Billy gets these awesome powers and starts playing around as any, teenager would do, but then he decides he needs money and commits a crime spree, and there was that didn't bother me. Oddly enough, that's not what bothered me. There were no consequences whatsoever for that. That bothered me.
Well, see, it did, and that was
the
one of the
police
things.
Never showed up, never went looking for him. He was all over social media. He was standing out in public, and they never.
That's one of the things, and I didn't bother. Like, I'm the exact opposite. Like, it bothered me that he was so criminally minded at the start.
Right.
Like, it was nice that he kind of learned as he goes, you know, but at the start.
Well, it did stay consistent, and for like a character arc, that's fine, but how are you going to teach me moral lessons if you keep confusing me like this?
Yeah. I was thinking about kind of what the morals of the movie would be, because earlier we were kind of talking about how there's not any like really heavy-handed morals, but I think there are some obvious morals, and there are some.
Be a good person.
Family
do
are the
right
people who
thing.
stick with you.
Bullying is
Family
bad.
values.
Kind of
Bullying
came
is
up a
bad.
lot
Yeah.
in the story.
Don't judge people.
Yeah, not to
Based
judge.
on,
Yeah,
based
but-
on the way they look, or you know, those are all great messages. Like, you run into this problem, right? When someone is so powerful, then they have to have a powerful
Villain.
and we didn't want to give Shazam his powers. Like, he didn't just appear with like, I can do all this stuff.
Right.
He's having to figure them out. So through most of the show, he kind of learns randomly, usually at times, I can do this. Like Shazam flies, but at the first he tries to fly and fails and fails.
So many times.
And,
Got funnier every time.
But the villain, Mark Strong's character, he is super powerful because of the 7 deadly sins. So I thought this was just a great mechanic, right? He's super powerful because of the 7 deadly sins, but then he sends them out to go do things, and then as they go out, each one goes away and he loses some power. So there's that weird, like, I mean, it's almost like a game of chess or a board game or something, right? It's like, well, I can send you all out, and we can divide and conquer, but then I'm having to give up my like super strength or whatever
so then
to
you gotta
do
battle
that.
this super powerful guy without all their help. And
It was kind of decisions that he had to make there, but it also gave him a vulnerability that it didn't feel like a manufactured vulnerability that just didn't make sense. Yeah. And I like that a lot about the character.
So I think Mark Strong is amazing. I just have to, like, I've seen him play villains, I've seen him play heroes. He's just amazing. I have decided.
So I liked his, I don't know if it's like art, but like we get to see him as a kid, we get to see kind of his dad being mean to him, we kind of learn why he makes the choices and stuff, and I always like when we get a little bit of bad guy, background too.
Could have used more, but it was fine.
Yeah, and we at least knew something about. He didn't just appear like, I'm going to conquer the world. But just overall, lighthearted, fun, a really good time. Doesn't beat you over the head. Great popcorn. Just sit back, relax, like shut your mind off. Yeah. And again, I can nitpick a lot of little things that are like they fly, and I never like flying.
There's a few nitpicky things like
never seems to work well.
Physics, mainly, and I don't even usually bring up physics in a superhero movie. But when you catch a bus. One that fell, that was a long fall, first of all.
If the bus stops immediately, it doesn't matter if it hit a person or concrete.
Right,
when
it doesn't
the bus
matter.
stops immediately, you're dead.
With all of the immediate catches that were that same way, people falling off of whatever, building a Ferris wheel, you catch them that close to the ground, a sudden stop, you're gonna splatter.
Yeah.
Like, someone needs to make Deadpool 3, please do this. Let him catch somebody and they just splatter because they fell so far. Because Deadpool, you can get away with it. We love you.
He just takes out his arms, rips both arms off, and they hit the
splatter.
ground.
And because that's what would happen. But the bus, assuming he could catch it,
it's not the fall that kills you. It's the sudden stop at the end.
Assuming nobody died in that. The bus should have crumpled around him because he's like this very small point catching it.
No. If you watch the movie again, because I noticed
but he was just holding it.
By the windshield.
By the windshield!
He caught the windshield of the bus.
So just, no.
With 2 hands, it stopped it.
Like, nice catch, but come on. Come on.
So, yeah, and I mean, there's little things like that.
That's a nit, though. It's
one of those things, though, I think if this had been, like, super serious, when that happens, I'd be like, oh, come on.
Right. But because it's whimsical.
Right, because it's whimsical. It's like, oh, okay. But I did notice that. I remember that. I'm like, really? You couldn't even, like, caught it, like, at least by the pillar in between the glass? Nope. 2 hands on the windshield and caught it. I was like, now, I did say something earlier, and I realize it's going to sound like I'm an idiot, but I did not mean it in a way. Like, there are references to the DC universe.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, he has a batarang in his thing, and the foster brother has a bullet that supposedly Superman stopped. You know? So there's, like, all these, like, little, like, but, like, it's not like they don't talk about what's going on.
Right, none of the
no
storyline from those others are even, they're not relevant at all to this story.
There's a couple little things to tell you, hey, this is in the DC universe, but it doesn't tie into anything. It doesn't add to the story, or, you know.
I guess the main thing it gives you is because they're in a world where superheroes exist and they know about them. So when he becomes, super,
Yeah,
it's
people
like,
don't freak out.
Just
They're like, oh, cool, superhero.
He accepts that. Oh, okay, that's what has happened. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Let's figure it out. If I were gonna pick one more nit, and a minor point, but mainly is for, I wouldn't take little kids to it just because of all the harsh language. There was just
surprisingly, yeah.
like
It was
just
kind of
normally I
off-putting
don't
because
even, but there was a lot.
Yeah, just out of nowhere, too.
For being a random superhero movie, there was in fact a lady just down from me with a little kid. I don't know how old she was, 8 or 9, and they ended up leaving midway through. I don't know if they were offended or had somewhere to be or what, but like I like, well, I wouldn't bring a kid that small.
But you know what?
Personally,
I think that also is one of the reasons it reminds me a lot of being in the movies as little kids. Because if you go back and look at like the stuff we watched when we were
oh my
kids,
gosh,
yeah, like there was.
I watched Space Camp. There's a lot of foul language in there.
Yeah,
Oh my
and so-
gosh. It was the 80s. It was the 80s.
People weren't as like overly sensitive about stuff like that back
Which
then.
I'm not sure that's a bad thing, but
I think you're right. I think that it wasn't completely intentional.
It was a
that they
different
were that they were trying to emulate those early '90s movies or late '80s movies in a lot of ways. Because I was watching it, and when you talk about the language, I was really like, man, a censor or a producer should have like exercised a little authority, because you could have either added more blood to the fight scenes or you could have cut the language. But you have the language, but then you have these suspiciously neutral fight scenes,
very clean,
and it's
clean.
like, what's going on?
So I saw something the other day. The '80s Transformers cartoon movie. There's profanity, just like one or two words, and it's so out of place. It's so weird. Like it's just randomly in there, and you're like, why did that need to be there when you watch it? And they did it on purpose.
Yeah.
Because back then, like PG movies got wider distribution than G movies, because G movies are for kids and nobody wants to distribute them. So they would throw in some profanity to bump up the rating,
Right.
and it would get wider distribution. Because this is a PG movie. Yeah, okay, you can go. And now we're the opposite.
Yeah.
But we need to take all that language out so more people will go to see it because it needs to be rated G. And that's, and we fussed for years about like Wolverine, and so we're like, Deadpool needs to be R, Wolverine needs to be R, because that's who they are as characters, and they were toning it down to try to get more people to see it. It used to be the opposite. They were pumping it up to try to get more, which kind of fights against what Shazam coming out now and like, we're gonna throw some profanity in there. But again, if they were just trying to emulate the style and of those 80s and 90s movies, then it makes perfect sense.
Unless they were trying to go full meta and appeal to the kid within and make us
did.
be better.
Totally.
And say, man, I wish they wouldn't
did.
have cussed.
Yeah, find me a group of 14-year-old kids, though, that isn't going
Oh
to...
God, no.
No, absolutely.
I mean,
like
School
teenagers,
teacher, dear Lord.
Teenagers, yeah, totally appropriate. I don't have any teenagers yet, but
I almost do.
but like that I get, but like littler, to me seems a bit much.
Because a 9 or a 10-year-old could watch this movie, but then like if you're a protective parent, you might be like, well, this is the one thing that just kind of ruins it.
Again, at your own discretion. Just tell you what it is.
So I heard a conversation yesterday
Do tell.
between my little group of.
Do I need the profanity buzzer?
No, I will not use any.
Okay.
There was like a little group of like 15-year-olds who walk, up and down the hallway every day screaming every profanity they can possibly come up with. And then in class, there's somebody said, well, I was talking about a cartoon movie that they had watched. And one of them said, yeah, my mom ran in and turned it off halfway through because there was a what she thought was a profanity word somewhere in the middle of it. And he's like, so I never got to see, she's like, she heard the word, come in and turn it off, something like that. And he's like, I never got to finish it. And I'm like, I think we might be delusional at this point, parents. Like, if you think your 15-year-old doesn't know every single, like, 4-letter word, And again, I don't know when, like, what that cutoff age is. Oh, well, you're 10, you should know all these words by now. Oh, you're 9, no. It's probably a kid-by-kid basis. I know when I was a little kid, I never knew movies were rated until I went to a friend's house and I was like, hey, let's watch this movie. And he's like, we can't watch that, it's rated R. And I'm like, what does that mean?
When I was growing up, I thought the R-rated meant that was the good movies.
It did.
Really good movie.
That's what they meant. The R-rated
That's
ones
what
are
my dad
better.
watched. That's what we watched.
Yeah,
So we had all
yes.
that Highlander. Oh yeah, the more heads you slice off, the better.
Better.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. Although the sequels were.
But I would feel really bad if someone said you can't go see Shazam because there's, and I didn't notice a prolific amount of, it's not, but I noticed like 3.
Yeah.
And because each one of them, and maybe it just after a while I got used to it, but I noticed like 3 of them because it was kind of jarring that it was so kid friendly, and then all of a sudden there was
right. And I think that's what it was. The whimsy, the lightheartedness was kind of counterpointed with that, and that's why it was jarring to me, I think.
This is a movie, like, if they edited it for TV just based on content, or if you go through like one of those distributors that they edit your movies for you, they're not going to edit any of the story out. Like, you're not missing anything other than someone's just going to like drop in sneakers, like, which would make the movie better, I think.
Start randomly yelling about fruit or
Well, I guess since they made Billy a little older, he needed to use some profanity to prove that he wasn't 8.
Well, if they're going for that authentic 15-year-old
if they were going for authentic 15-year-old lingo, they cut out a lot of words.
It would have been much worse.
I did love whenever they tried to do adult stuff, and they were just like,
that.
And they tried to do adult stuff, and then the kids were just like, this isn't fun.
Oh, the
gas station
convenience store. Yeah, that was funny.
I want to go back and do something that's kid-like because I enjoy that. That's me as an adult, man.
Yeah, still.
It's like, ooh, sarsaparilla.
Y'all have anything else on Shazam? Anyone?
No.
All right, so what do y'all got for a streaming option?
I'm going to go, I've referenced this several times, but I'm going to say Superman, Christopher Reeves.
Yeah.
Like, I get the same...
1970.
I felt just like I was a little kid sitting in a theater watching Christopher Reeves fly for the first time. And it had that, gee willikers, ma'am, I don't know, like it just had that sensibility to it to me. It may be terrible. I actually watched Supergirl again the other day, so if you want a more girl-friendly, go watch
Helen Slater?
Helen Slater, yeah. And it's cheesy and it's corny, but it's, I don't know, it was still very enjoyable. And get you like superhero fix-in, flying, invulnerability, all that. So I'm going with Superman or Supergirl from them.
I would add to that, the first 2 Superman movies from back in, it's like 78-ish, whenever that came out, were written by Mario Puzo, same guy who wrote The Godfather. So it's top-notch writing.
Was it Richard Donner who did the...
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, the first 2 were really good.
The third
not
one,
not so much after that,
Don't do the third one, like... Nor the fourth one, really. No. Just stop at the second if you're going to watch those.
Saves you some time. It's great.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to cheat here instead of going with the stream option. Read.
Oh.
Dang it.
That's what you get.
Kingdom Come. Graphic novel, DC. Oh. It's set in the future. All the characters are a little bit older, but Shazam plays a major part in that. And it's my favorite story with the character in it. So.
And I love their take on Mr. Mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
You gonna go or you
gonna go? I'll go ahead and go. So I mean, the easy suggestion would be the animated Shazam movie that came back. I don't even remember exactly what it was called.
Any of the DC anime, except Batman Ninja. Any of the DC animated movies.
Do not watch Batman Ninja.
Do not watch Batman Ninja.
But the hard sell that I'm going to pull out of the time vault is Blank Check.
Ooh.
Huh.
So it's kind of an interesting story about... it's not interesting. Like a kid's... What was it? I don't even remember the movie.
It was fun when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So basically some gangster thugs have stolen this money and they're trying to move it. And so they write it as a blank check to someone... And the kid accidentally wanders into this place.
They run over the kid's bike.
They run over his
bike. They're trying to get away, so they write him a check, but they don't fill it in. So the kid writes in, what is it, $1 million?
Yeah.
And cashes it.
And he cashes it, and so they put their money into an account, and then he actually gets all their money.
Right.
And he lives these, like, kid fantasies of, if I was an adult and I had this money, what would I do? And so there's kind of a similar feel, but without the superheroics. And I know a lot of people said we've gotten saturated in superhero movies, so it's got a lot of the same stuff without that.
Well, and he tries to get the girl, like with the money. I remember he tries to impress people.
I actually have a secondary recommendation I thought someone else was going to say, so I'm going to let you go. If you don't say it, I'm going to give a second recommendation.
The thing I kept coming back to, and it's not a perfect fit, but Megamind was the one that I kept thinking of. Because you've got... I think there's family drama struggle some, but still with the positive family values. And there was that quest to find something, because you're going to be fulfilled when you get this thing, specifically Megamind trying to win. And then when you get that thing, you're not fulfilled by it. So you have to essentially figure out what to do next. And both of themselves were they didn't take themselves too seriously, and they made fun with the genre of superheroes and villains and that sort of stuff. So to me, the feeling was kind of similar, even though it's quite a bit different, and Megamind's animated and less harsh language, so it's a lot more kid friendly. And it has presentation. So Megamind.
Yeah, I just never enjoyed Megamind as much as I should. I really thought, I don't know if it's the Will Ferrell, I don't know if it's I don't know, something about it. So I thought sure somebody else was going to say it, so that's why I didn't say this. But
Blank
Big,
Man.
Not Blake Man. I really enjoyed Blake Man, but not Blake Man. Actually, Blake Man's really good. Watch it, Damon Wayans, great. Big with Tom Hanks.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of the same, right?
Yeah.
The kid becomes a grown up. He has his best friend with him, trying to help him
Be an
grown
adult,
up.
yeah.
And it's a comedy, not a superhero movie, but a lot of the same feel. You get kind of that. Oh, he's just a fish out of water. He's a kid in an adult body, and that one was really fun. So if you want kind of the same feel, kind of the same story, minus the superhero part, of course.
And a similar piano scene.
Oh yeah,
That's true. Oh my
That was
gosh.
intentional.
it had to be.
Oh, it had to be. And I just